At this time, I'd like to call the City Council meeting to order of May 23rd, 2022. The call to order, if you would, and roll call.
Mr. Carter?
Present.
Mr. Walters? Mr. Young?
Here?
Ms. Cleveland McGrath?
Here.
Ms. Moulton?
Here.
Mr. McDougall?
Here.
Ms. Hubick?
Here.
Would you stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Well, thank you. Got a full crowd tonight, and I'm going to start out with just a COVID update, if okay. Right now, Skagit County has moved into the high disease transmission level. Skagit County's 7-day case rate has increased by 1% since last week. There's been no change in our 7-day hospital rate. There have been no new COVID-19 related deaths in Skagit County in the past 5 weeks. Last week, Skagit County finally surpassed 70% fully vaccinated among eligible residents ages 5 and up. So given that we've moved into the CDC's transmission level of high, we urge caution by everybody and to exercise what you believe to be within your best health interests as we move forward. I want to say that I'm here tonight sitting in for our mayor who's away, and I'm honored to be here as Mayor Pro Tem, and I look forward to this council meeting that we're having. And so therefore, I'm going to move forward to announcements and committee reports. First up is Traffic Safety Committee. It's a discussion.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes, Ms. Moulton.
Thank you. The Traffic Safety Committee met on May 17th, and it was staff as well as Mr. Carter and you, Mr. Young. We were all there, and we talked about quite a few things. Traffic paint has been out of stock everywhere. There's been a shortage since 2019, but our paint order is expected to arrive in a couple of weeks, back in stock. We talked about a topic of great interest to most of our residents that is the RV presence on T Avenue, where APD and Anacortes Family Center staff have been diligently visiting the people that are there at least on a weekly basis, and many of them have been provided with services, but some have refused service. And so 6 RVs have been tagged that are not currently registered to the people living in them, or they're not registered at all. So those are scheduled to be towed on Thursday if they are not moved by the occupants. All the people, again, have been approached by the outreach team, and these are people who have not taken advantage of the services open to them. So if they are impounded, the RVs, they will be held for 60 days and then destroyed. So I applaud the APD and the Family Center staff for constantly reaching out to people for the best possible outcomes. We talked about the Sandwich Project and the preschool that will be at D Avenue, and there will be crosswalks installed there, possibly with grant funds. And there's a plan to paint curbs yellow on 15th and 17th Streets where they intersect with D to make sure that parked cars won't inhibit drivers' ability to see around them and to be safe on the road. There is a new GIS parking map that Rob Hoxie made for parking. It's pretty nifty, and I think it's available on the city website already. So you can see where parking is allowed and for how long all around the city if you geek out on stuff like that, like I do. Fidalgo Flats had requested their own no parking loading zone, but after much discussion, the committee decided that would only cause more issues for other businesses or developments that felt like they should get the same treatment in their own special zones. And delivery trucks seem to manage in all the other spots already, so that was not moving forward. Let's see, there's this pedestrian safety issue near the Skyline Marine Center on Skyline Way near Cabana Lane. So we talked about how to get people safely across the road there. So engineering staff is looking at design ideas, maybe adding a sidewalk and a crosswalk. So just another effort to improve safety for everyone. And then on West 8th Place, Waze, the app has been directing people there to a very narrow road to go to Little Cranberry Lake. And that has brought to the attention of the fire department that that road shouldn't have parking on it on either side because it's too narrow for safety vehicles to access it. So there will not be parking on the street there any longer, and probably signs to direct people to the Georgia Avenue entrance to Little Cranberry Lake. Let's see, looking at my notes, a couple other parking things. The Skyline HOA wanted parking to be changed from 72 hours to 3 hours along Sands Way. But the committee decided it's okay as is. That's basically it. Unless Mr. Carter or Mr. Young have anything to add.
Thank you, Ms. Moulton. Next, we have the Housing Affordability and Community Service Committee.
Mr. Young?
Okay.
The Housing Affordability and Community Services Committee met last week on a site visit with Skagit Habitat for Humanity. We paid a visit both to their future site in Mount Vernon, where they're currently finalizing a short plat, and to their existing housing site in Sedro-Woolley. We chatted with them about how they manage their housing, how they allocate it to those that are eligible, how they achieve permanent affordability of their developments. As we've reported a couple of times, Habitat is interested in leasing some land from the city, a couple of vacant parcels on West 5th that the city already owns. So we'll be getting them set up here shortly with a time to present to full council on that. And we've been working with them on making sure that their proposal is consistent with our comprehensive plan goals.
Thank you, Mr. Walters. Next, we have the Parks and Recreation Committee.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes.
Thank you. Parks and Rec Committee met on May 19th. In attendance was Ms. Moulton, Mr. McDougall, myself, and staff. Had a lot to talk about. We meet quarterly, not monthly. Parks will be coming back to us in June with more information on the cemetery fee increases. They will also be coming back to us in June to ask for some REAP funding to move forward with the skate park. We also got an update on the new Cap Sante Trail that they have been working with Rotary. There's going to be a June 11th unveiling, and we're really looking forward to that. They've been doing a lot of work on it, and I've had a really good partnership with the Yacht Club as well. Parks and Rec and the ACFL and the Senior Center have all been incredibly busy looking for more help during the summertime. Tons of mowing. Washington Park is actually booked on most of the weekends through the summer, so if you know you have family coming in town, consider booking them out in the middle of the week. Hanging baskets have gone up. The spray pad will be turned on, we're thinking the Friday before Memorial Day. A lot of the classes that are being offered through the city are getting filled very quickly. So really good news. Lots of folks are excited to get out and interact with each other. We also got a quick update on the third vaccination clinic that was hosted out at the Senior Center. They had 81 people get their vaccinations. They're also funding more CPR and AED trainings. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hubick. Next, we have the Planning Committee.
Yes, thank you. So Planning Committee met at 5 o'clock today, and it was Ms. Moulton, Mr. Walters, and myself. We had a great presentation, kind of a practice presentation with Diane Hennenbert, who handles all of the stormwater management for our community. So she is going to be presenting to Planning Commission next week. So it's Ordinance 4023, and it's about illicit discharges and connections to the stormwater drainage system. And It's pretty much addresses anything that's not rainwater that might go into our stormwater system. And it's really about stopping pollution before it enters the stormwater. So we need to have it adopted by August 1st, and the program will launch January 1st. So there will be a SEPA process and planning review for comment. So feel free to check into that, and then it'll come to council later. We talked a little bit about the cell tower and the process that's involved with that. We've gotten some comments. We are following our code correctly, and we'll go through that process. Mr. Walters brought up a point that there's been an ANOFA announcement for rapid rehousing funding, so we want to pursue if there's a possibility for our community to provide housing in that manner. And then finally, our Public Works Director ran it by us, and we were very encouraging to him to start doing regular updates to council about kind of permitting process, what's going on, what projects are happening in our community, and what their status is. So look forward to that probably starting in June. I think that's it.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
So one more thing, I didn't hear you mention the wireless tower issue. Did you?
I did.
You did? Did you mention the legal notice problem?
No.
Okay. So the legal notice that was published in the newspaper about the wireless tower in Skyline was bizarrely edited in several ways, and it will be republished this week with a new comment period because it directed comments to Wisconsin instead of here at City Hall. And we look forward to that not happening again, but please spread the word.
Thank you, Ms. Cleland McGrath and Mr. Walters. Are there any other announcements and committee reports? Okay, within that said, we'll now move on to public comment, and we have 3 online participants, and Jennifer will unmute them and as they're called upon. So, any public comment about anything that's not on the agenda? I see no one in the audience. Well, there's one person. You have a public comment? Please come forward. Okay. That's the brew. Okay.
Hello? Oh, yes. Hello. Hi there. My name is Anastasia Brensick. My wife and I moved here 6 years ago from Whidbey Island, and we have a 3-year-old Cedar, and Oliver's our 6-year-old, and they're in the back. And my mom is in the crowd here tonight, too, visiting from Portland, and she wanted to be here to see this amazing moment in time for our community. I want to thank you, members of the City Council, for making the time and space and the conviction to say yes to the LGBTQ community, yes to proactive decisions that make inclusivity a priority, and yes to allowing this town to grow in love for all. Not tolerating the LGBTQ community, but really embracing us. To quote the 2021 Pride Proclamation from the White House, quote, "The uprising of the Stonewall Inn in June 1969 sparked a liberation movement, a call to action that continues to inspire us to live up to our nation's promise of equality, liberty, and justice for all." There was a time that it was illegal to be gay. If you were caught, you would be jailed. And when you were jailed, your name was printed in the newspaper. So you could be outed to your family, your church, your neighbors. You would lose your job and your housing and be subjected to further cruelties and violence. I say this so we don't forget the history, but embrace as a whole community. We can move forward together as we continue making this town better and better for our children and our children's children. Tonight, you make me proud to be an Anacortesan and a proud American. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bensett. Next on the public comment sheet, we have Mr. Douglas Thurber. Welcome, Mr. Thurber.
Good evening. You're taking comments for all the resolutions also, apparently. Okay.
Well, we
So-
we
so
were
wonderful.
hoping to wait just a little bit, but I think Ms. Brensick got a little bit ahead of the gun, and I didn't want to interrupt her when she was already mid-stride. So, Mr. Thurber, you're welcome to go forward now, or you can wait till the resolution comes forward.
Either way, I'm here now.
Okay, well, bring it.
Yeah.
Bring it, Mr. Thurber.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Doug Thurber, Anacortes, Washington. My Aunt Evelyn was a brilliant gal. She was awarded a 4-year scholarship to NYU during the Depression and graduated. She was fluent in 4 languages. And I remember, she's passed away now, and I remember that she complained and, in fact, was offended by homosexual groups that had hijacked the word gay. And I think they're now in the process of trying to hijack the word pride. And watch out, they may try and steal your rainbow. Oh, I see you have a rainbow on, Mr. Young. I think resolutions should only be passed by government for groups that sustain the society. Armed Forces Month, Law Enforcement Month, First Responders Month. You want to possibly pass a resolution now for groups that you could arguably say our behavior is not sustainable. 2 women sexually pleasing one another does not produce an offspring. 2 men sexually pleasing one another does not produce an offspring. So unsustainable. I think if you were going to pass a resolution for what they call gay pride, you ought to first pass one for homosexuality, for heterosexuality. And you might call that Relationship Fulfillment Month. So I don't think you should pass this resolution at this time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Thurber. We also have Mary Jo McArdle. Am I saying that correctly, or close to it? All right, thank you very much. All right, are there any others online that wish to have a say at this point? I don't see any hands up. And at that point, we're going to move forward to the next item on the agenda, and that is the consent agenda. What say you, council?
Mayor Pro Tem,
Yes, Mr. McDougall.
I move to approve consent agenda items A through D.
Second.
We've had a motion and a second. Call for the vote, please, Mr. Hoagland. All in favor? Oh, got it. You know, I'm a little rusty at this thing, so please be patient with me. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. The ayes have it. Thank you. At this point on the agenda, we're going to move forward with our public hearings. And at this time,
Yeah. Mayor Pro Tem.
yes, Ms. Cleveland McGrath.
Yeah, so 7A, Resolution 3088, would it be possible for us to move that to the end of other business? Yes?
Yes?
Do we need a second to move that?
Second.
Thank you.
I don't think so. I see a lot
Okay.
of nodding of heads. Okay, so what we're discussing now is we're going to move item 7A, Resolution 3088, declaring Pride Month, June 2022, to the end of our agenda, and therefore we're going to move forward to item 7B now, which is Resolution 3087, authorizing execution. Oh, public hearing? Yes. Okay, got it. Sorry about that. Resolution 3082 is a resolution updating the work plan adopted by Resolution 3005 regarding bonus height provisions in the R4 use zone west of commercial use zone related to Ordinance 4020. Mr. Miesemer, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, members of the council and the audience. Resolution 3082 establishes a work plan related to the moratorium extended by Ordinance 4020 on accepting land use applications in the R4 use zone west of the commercial use zone that intend to use the bonus height provisions of AMC 19.42 050C, where at least 25% of the units would be not more than 600 square feet and would therefore allow for an additional 10 foot beyond the base height of 40 feet to 50 foot. And so as many of you know, there was a 5-story building permit that was approved several months ago. And as a result, the moratorium was enacted by council to give staff and the community time to take a look at what some of the consequences of that building were and are, and how to maybe mitigate that in the future. And so the attached updated work plan to Resolution 3082 establishes our path forward with community engagement and eventually Planning Commission recommendation to the City Council on potential development regulation amendments. I'd also like to note that the work plan coincides with work that we are currently conducting with the Housing Action Plan. And so there are both of them are kind of moving together simultaneously, so that our hopes are that we can finish this summer at some point. So with that, it is a public hearing open for public comment at this. Thank you.
Mr. Young?
Yes, Mr. Walters.
Maybe before we throw the floodgates open, and I see everybody here ready to comment on the Housing Action Plan and the moratorium. The first item on the schedule is listed as May, and May's almost over. So are we thinking that that bleeds into June, or do you feel like that item has kind of already been accomplished?
So part of that has been already accomplished. We're moving into June on that. As you know, back in February 2020, we went through some workshops with the council, with Planning Commission, and with the community. So before the end of June, I'll be coming to council to confirm what some of those concepts are that we want to move forward with.
Okay, so it seems to me that in order to stick to this work plan, we are going to need to probably look at these things more than once in June and starting pretty early in June.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr.
I suspect we'll be very busy.
Well, I look forward to seeing it. At this point, unless there's some objection, I can officially declare that is open to public hearing at this point. Are there any public comments? See no hands in the audience, and I don't see any hands online. At this point, next step is to close the public hearing, am I right? Okay, we will close the public hearing at this point, and council action is next. Any discussion by council?
Nope.
Ms. Cleland McGrath.
Yeah, this has taken a while to finally get it in front of us, but it makes sense because we have this housing action plan that we're working on. So delaying it and working in tandem is the best way moving forward. So I recommend to approve the resolution 3082 as presented.
Seconded.
We've got a motion by Ms. Cleland McGrath and a second by Ms. Hubick. All in favor, or do we need to do the roll call, Mr. Hoagland?
You can do a voice vote on
Okay,
this.
voice vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The ayes have it. Thank you. Next, we have Resolution 3087, authorizing execution of Tourism Promotion Fund contracts. This is discussion with possible action. At this point, I turn to Mr. Hoagland.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Young. So the Lodging Tax Committee met 2 weeks to review these 2 applications. These applications did come in earlier this year after the traditional application period was closed. There was an application from the car show. That's a longstanding program that lodging tax has funded. They did not apply last year as there were some health issues by some key members of that organization. Fortunately, they did overcome those health issues and did an ad hoc request after the end of the previous year. The other program is from the Anacortes Water Alliance for the Anacortes Regatta. This is the first year that they've applied. So both of these requests were reviewed 2 weeks ago by the Lodging Tax Committee. Both received overwhelming support by the committee, and therefore the committee is requesting council to approve both of those applications.
Thank you, Mr. Hoagland. Let's see. So, yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes, Mr. Walters, please.
I think this is pretty straightforward, so I move that we approve Resolution 3087 as presented.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Walters, a second by Ms. Cleland McGrath. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The ayes have it. We move forward. Okay. Next we have item number 7C, which is the Ordinance 4022, adoption of the 2019 Stormwater Management Manual for Western Washington. This is a discussion, and I think we have Ms. Hindenburg here. Thank you.
All right. You guys hear me okay? Good evening, council and members of the public. I am Diane Hennebert. I'm the Stormwater Program Manager for the city, and I'm here to talk to you about adoption of the 2019 Stormwater Management Manual for Western Washington. The city is currently operating under the 2012 manual as it was amended in 2014. This manual is updated approximately every 5 years, and our Western Washington Phase 2 municipal stormwater permit requires adoption of the 2019 manual no later than June 30th of 2022. So I'm here to go over the changes in the updated manual and any effects it might have on development and construction activities in Anacortes. So the Stormwater Management Manual is the answer to nearly all of the questions on stormwater regulations for development and construction. It's 5 volumes, 1,108 pages, small print, and very few pictures, but is full of really useful information. So the 5 volumes, Volume 1 covers the minimum requirements for new development and redevelopment. Volume 2 is construction stormwater pollution prevention. Volume 3 is choosing, modeling, and documenting your best management practices. Volume 4 is the source control best management practice library. And Volume 5 is runoff treatment, flow control, and low impact development best management practice library. So the minimum requirements are housed in Volume 1 and cover the measures necessary to control the quantity and quality of stormwater produced by new development and redevelopment. This covers projects of all sizes and provides guidance for preparing and implementing stormwater site plans. These requirements are in turn satisfied by the application of the best management practices, or BMPs, from Volumes 2, 4, and 5. So on the left-hand side of the slide, I have the 9 minimum requirements, and the ones that are updated have been listed in blue. And on the right-hand side, I have a quick explanation. So minimum requirement 2, the construction stormwater pollution prevention plan, was updated to align with the NPDES construction stormwater permit that contractors are required to get for sites that disturb more than 1 acre. Minimum requirement 5 is on-site stormwater management, now requires post-construction soil quality and depth, Establishing a minimum soil quality and depth will provide improved on-site stormwater management of flow and water quality. And minimum requirement 7, which is flow control, has been updated to ensure that an area discharging to a marine water body meets all exemption requirements before it can be determined to be flow control exempt. Much of Anacortes is considered flow control exempt. Staff already has much of the documentation for developers to meet this requirement and will ensure that the information is readily available for applicants. The biggest change to the best management practices, or more commonly called BMPs, was organizational, with all of the source control BMPs contained in Volume 4 and runoff treatment, flow control, and low impact development housed in Volume 5. However, they did add 18 new source control BMPs covering activities from potable water line flushing to in-water and over-water fueling and dealing with goose waste. The only existing BMP that was altered was concrete washout, and that was just to clarify that only hand tools and auxiliary concrete truck components can be washed out into areas awaiting a pour, and that the concrete truck drums now must be washed either off-site or into a concrete washout area. Wetlands protect water quality, reduce flooding, facilitate groundwater recharge, and provide critical habitat for fish and wildlife. The manual provides guidance to prevent pollutants from entering the wetlands and to avoid excessive alteration of water flow to wetlands from development. This update requires monitoring and modeling of high-value wetlands if the project proponent has legal access to them. The rest of the 2014 wetland guidance is retained, with a few refinements for modeling requirements for lower value wetlands and high value ones that the applicant does not have legal access to. For the final changes, text throughout the manual has been updated to require continuous simulation models for low impact development design. They incorporated the guidance for the underground injection control program. However, due to low infiltration rates in Anacortes, staff does not expect many UIC wells to be installed in this area, and it was enhanced for usability and better flow. There's a lot of really useful information on the Department of Ecology website, including links to an interactive online version of the manual, as well as a downloadable PDF. City of Anacortes stormwater site also contains information on stormwater in Anacortes and links to Anacortes stormwater regulations. So the new manual, much easier to navigate. The most substantial changes are the refinement of the minimum requirements and the modeling requirements, as well as the additional BMPs. I will be back on June 6th for a vote on the adoption, but I do want to note that there will be a few amendments to what is in your packet. We're going to remove the definition listed for adjustment because it's redefining a normal English word for something very specific, and that could easily be a word that's used elsewhere in the Unified Development Code. There's one small typo, and we also are removing the definition for SWMMWW, which is the shorthand for the management manual, and just referring to it as the Stormwater Management Manual throughout code, with one location where we specify which version of the manual we have adopted. If you have any questions, I can take them at this time.
Mr. Young?
Mr. Walters?
I appreciate your work on this. I think that these edits are pretty straightforward. Basically, we're moving to a new version of the manual. That's a substantial change, but it's not a substantial editing exercise in our code. And those further edits that you just highlighted help make it an even smaller exercise, so that we really are only referencing it, the date of the manual in one spot, and then we just update it then. Because these do happen every several years, and we don't expect that that will stop.
Nope, it will not. They're already working on the 2024 manual.
So I look forward to that final draft, and then taking action on it and having that done.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walters. Anyone else? All right, thank you, Ms. Hennebert. I really appreciate the hard work you do and the team that you bring forward. It's always enlightening to not only just me and I'm sure council, but the public as well. So thank you very much for your hard work. At this time, we're going to move to item 7D on your agenda, and it's the Shoreline Master Program Periodic Update. It's a discussion. Ms. Grange.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and members of council and members of the audience. I'm going to get my PowerPoint presentation up here. Okay. So, just a quick agenda. At our last meeting on May 16th, the last council meeting on May 16th, we talked about the Shoreline Master Program and focused on some of the proposed amendments to that document. There were some items that council asked for clarification on and some that I promised I'd bring back some follow-up information on, so I wanted to talk about those a little bit, and those included the status of the draft documents, the critical areas regulation approach in the SMP, reuse of historic overwater structures, and vegetation conservation standards. I was requested to bring some examples for how that process would work, and I was not able to get to that, so that'll come at a subsequent meeting. And then we're hoping to get some council feedback, additional questions, and identification of any other changes that you would like to see to the document before going out again for a public comment period. And then we'll talk about the process moving forward. So the status of the draft documents, I apologize, at the last meeting there was a little bit of confusion. I didn't answer one of the questions correctly. But what we've got with this update process is 3 different documents that are kind of working together simultaneously. We've got the the Shoreline Master Program standalone document, which is what we have right now, and there's a strike-through underlined version of the proposed amendments in that document. We've also developed the codified version of the regulations that come out of the Shoreline Master Program standalone document. And then finally, there's the shoreline element of the comprehensive plan. Those 2 documents that I mentioned last, AMC Title 19 and the shoreline element, do not reflect all of the changes that we've made in the Shoreline Master Program standalone version. And that was because we've been going through multiple versions and we didn't want to have to keep updating each document every time there were changes made. So the plan moving forward is after council provides some feedback on additional changes that need to be made, we plan to make those changes in all of the documents that will go out for public review.
Mr. Young?
Mr. Walters?
Okay, so by standalone document, which bullet on our agenda packet here are you referring to? The first one is called Second Draft SMP Update Text.
That one.
That's the latest and greatest?
Yes.
Okay. When I was reviewing them, I actually thought that the draft AMC 1972 Shorelines document looked better. Like, better meaning maybe later breaking updates. No?
Yes. Pardon?
But no?
No, the second draft of the standalone SMP document has, like at the last meeting, one of the items was the shoreline exemption versus shoreline clearing and grading permit. And so that change is in the second draft SMP proposed text. So
Okay.
I apologize for the confusion, but we do intend to have all of the documents have the same language for the next public comment period.
Okay.
Does that
All
make
right.
sense?
Maybe in fact, maybe I didn't look at that document for the development regulations. Maybe I only looked at the AMC 1972.
The changes aren't significant between the two.
Okay.
Okay. So the next item that I wanted to talk about was regulation of critical areas in shoreline jurisdiction. It's a complicated topic with lots of layers. And so really what I just wanted to say was that critical areas regulations that are prepared under the Growth Management Act, which we just updated that last year, have differences in considerations, procedures, and other standards that are not the same as are required in the Shoreline Master Program. And the Shoreline Management Act requires that the Shoreline Master Program alone provide for critical areas protection within shoreline jurisdiction. And so there's a couple of different ways that that can be accomplished. The current approach that we have been using for the last 10 years, since the last time we updated the SMP, was to have an Appendix A, which had shoreline-specific critical areas. So basically, it was just a copy of our critical areas regulations with certain tweaks made to it, and it was a completely separate appendix in the SMP, which was commonly missed by folks doing critical areas reports for various projects. So our proposed approach is to incorporate by reference our newly updated critical areas regulations that we completed by adopting a specific dated version of that critical areas regulations in 1970, and then excluding provisions that are inconsistent with the Shoreline Management Act. So there are some procedural things that are in our critical areas regulations that don't work in shoreline management or shoreline jurisdiction, and a couple of other things like that, and I'll show you what that looks like here in a second. And then there was a question about timing and reference made to an update to, future updates that will be made to our critical areas regulations. And what we are looking at with that is that completion of those amendments would be completed prior to adopting the Shoreline Master Program, and then those would then be incorporated by reference.
Mr. Young?
Mr. Walters.
So then, the ordinance adopting the critical areas regulations right now is just one single ordinance, but the critical areas code will have then been amended by a later ordinance. So you won't be able to reference just one.
That's a very good point. We'll need to look at how to address that issue so it's not too complicated.
Yeah, it might be that we have to just attach an appendix for clarity.
Yeah. We'll look further into that. Thank you. Okay, and then this is just how that looks in the section that actually adopts that critical areas ordinance by reference. So it's saying that it's adopted under Ordinance 3064, although that would change, with the following exclusions, and then it excludes all of the sections that are not consistent with the Shoreline Management Act. The next item that I wanted to talk about a little bit, there were some questions about what types of uses are allowed when redevelopment of a historic overwater structure occurs. And this is just a map that shows the area that we were discussing the other night. This little band of yellow is proposed to be changed from the urban shoreline environment designation to shoreline residential. And that is intended to match the underlying future land use map designation and zoning designation of that property, which is R2A along a portion and then Old Town along a portion. So these two overwater structures, this is called the Sebastian Stewart or Salina Cannery, and then this is the Shannon Point Cannery, which is also formerly known as Ebb Tide, I understand. So these red lines are showing the area of the Anacortes Harbor area, and that's a constitutionally established area where the Department of Natural Resources manages those, I'll aquatic lands on behalf of the people of Washington State. And so any uses that are established within that area require Department of Natural Resources approval and authorization. And DNR does have leases over the portions of these structures that are past the inner harbor line. So the Shoreline Master Program contains a policy allowing for refurbishing or rebuilding existing piers and wharves to maintain a modern-day link with the community's maritime history. And I've got that policy here, SMP Policy 5.6.6. And the Shoreline Master Program allows for reuse of existing structures for certain water-dependent and water-related uses. But this policy directs non-water dependent commercial uses not be allowed over water except on existing or replacement structures. And then, sorry about all the text, but these are the specific regulations governing reuse of historic overwater structures for water enjoyment uses. And so, water enjoyment uses within the context of this regulation do include restaurants and transient lodging, but all of these additional requirements would apply to any such proposal to do those uses. The structures need to be documented on the local historic register. And to my checking with the museum, neither of the structures that were in the map are on the local historic register. I think the Sebastian Stewart Cannery has been deemed eligible for the National Register, but it hasn't been listed to date. Redevelopment must have overall environmental benefits and result in no reduction in amount of physical public access. Where there are new buildings proposed on an existing or reconstructed overwater structure, there are these requirements that a third of the overwater structure include public access, including a perimeter walkway. Then the remaining 2/3 of the structure must be part of a mixed-use development where any water enjoyment use is clearly auxiliary and in support of a water-dependent use. Additionally, the proposal would need to result in improved shoreline ecological functions, and any design of a rebuilt structure or new building on the structure would have to be approved by appropriate historic preservation agencies. The public access portion available for public use would need to be completed as part of the first component of any sort of development like that, with the city being party to a binding agreement guaranteeing public access and permanent public access. Any proposed non-water dependent commercial use must be associated with a water dependent use. I think I kind of already said that. And then to encourage preservation of privately owned historic overwater structures, which is the case with the two, and to encourage public access to such structures. Commercial uses catering to the general public may be allowed if they're a part of a mixed use that includes a water-dependent use and provides a significant public benefit with respect to the shoreline management's objectives. And then it goes on to list out examples of those uses. So that's where restaurants and transient lodging are listed as possibilities. And then residential development is prohibited on any existing or new overwater structures. And then finally, just any proposal that...
Mr. Walters?
All of this sounds great, except that the brass tacks of this would require a bunch of parking. And how would we accommodate that without building that parking within the adjacent upland residential neighborhood for all the types of water enjoyment uses that might be envisioned on one of these existing structures?
It would be very difficult.
Yeah. So, and the zoning allows for that. So I feel like we're setting ourselves up for a lot of conflict with this policy plus the underlying non-shoreline zoning.
Sure.
Well, okay, just flagging that for future discussion then, I
Okay.
guess.
Sounds like we might have one. All right, Ms. Grange, continue, unless there's anything else. Okay. Mr. Meismer.
Oh, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, appreciate that. Looking at this, excuse me, this particular policy's been in place now for several years, and I know that it has created some conflict. I think what might be useful for the council is if staff were to put together kind of a case study that would outline exactly what it might look like if somebody were to say, I want to do a specialty store or a small boat rental or something like that, keeping in mind that the council can, you can amend these sections as needed throughout this process prior to adoption of the ordinance. But I think it would be useful for you to see exactly what it would look like in regards to parking with the adjacent residential use zones and what kind of commercial uses might actually be available there. One other thing to keep in mind is that each of the two structures that Ms. Grange pointed out are probably reaching their full life expectancy, and they're in dire need of repairs. We're talking millions of dollars. I know one of the structures will require replacement over 120 piles before they could do anything, with that one. So again, we'll put together a little bit more information and bring that together, bring that back to council at our next available meeting.
Mr. Young?
Mr. Walters.
Mr. Meismer, I think that would be helpful, and then we could also consider amendments to this section that would say something like parking's got to be contained within the site, within the pier. That might not be possible in all cases, might not be allowed, separately disallowed, but it would help constrain the scale, because a little kayak rental place, might not be inconsistent with the neighborhood, but a very large development really would. So I feel like this section could use quite a bit more evaluation, and starting with those case studies I think would be great.
Thank you.
Thank you. I agree. I think that case studies would give sort of a model for us to put our minds around, what it might look like and what it might take in order to make it successful, or even if it's a fit. So yes, we look forward to it. Thank you. Ms. Grange?
Thank you, Mr. Meismer. Okay, well, so next steps, as far as staff is recommending, or what we're anticipating here, is that we were hoping to get feedback on needed changes tonight, so that we could go ahead and incorporate those directed changes into a third draft and get that published, so that we could publicize a public comment period from June 1st to June 22nd, with a public hearing on June 21st. We've also got some potential optional city council meetings during the comment period, which it sounds like we'll probably take advantage of with some of the additional information to bring forward. And then in July, August timeframe for going through any public comments we receive, changes that are needed, and then ultimately adoption of the Shoreline Master Program. And that's all I have this evening. So open it up for additional council discussion, or
Any discussion by council?
Mayor Pro Tem.
Mr. McDougall?
Ms. Grange, would you mind going back to, I think it was 2 slides? Yeah, this one. Okay, S&P policy 566. I actually just wanted to go and find it in the document. Thank you.
sure.
Mr. Young?
Mr. Walters?
I sent you this afternoon a bunch of line-by-line edits. As it turns out, those were probably in the wrong document. So I might resend those. Those were largely where verbs, helper verbs, will, must, shall, were a little funky. A couple of heading changes. There's one section in this document having to do with moratoria and interim controls. It doesn't seem to allow for a year-long period. Is that, like it does in the GMA context, is that a constraint under SMA? Or is that just
I don't
An
know the
oversight.
answer to that. Alex Capron is here from the Watershed Company. He might know.
Yeah, that is a legislative amendment that was put together as Ecology's checklist. So it is, yeah, the moratorium that's set, as part of the state level requirement.
So the state does not allow a 1-year period for shoreline moratoria?
I can look into that. If the time period can be flexed.
Yeah, if possible under the statute, it would be my preference that it just works like our other moratoria provisions. So it's
Right.
it doesn't function unexpectedly.
Okay.
And then I guess after I dig into the correct document, I might have additional small edits.
Pro Tem.
Mr. McDougall.
Actually, Ms. Grades, would you mind advancing one slide as well? I'm looking for that language in the document.
That is, sorry. Development Regulation 5.6.4.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
Any other comments by council? All right, Ms. Grange, back to you. Mr. Walters.
We'd also talked about adding an illustration to the vegetation section. What
Yes.
were your thoughts on that? I mean, don't limit yourself to just one, but
I will be working with the Watershed Company to come up with some additional graphics to add. We can put those in the third draft. Are there any other items? The Planning Commission had made a recommendation of approval subject to some changes that were identified based on public comments received. So we were going to go ahead and incorporate all of those, unless if council's all right with that.
Mr. Walters.
can you summarize those changes?
Yeah, so I could probably bring up that document. Kind of the main ones were related to sea level rise policies. That was a major one. There was a change regarding some language about treated wood and how we can revise the language to be a little bit more flexible on the use of different applications there. Alex, do you remember any of the other changes?
Yes, there was a shoreline stabilization incorporating the reference of sea level rise into that analysis for any additional development or new parcels that need shoreline stabilization. So it's shoreline stabilization, it's an existing regulation that prohibits it, but that any analysis would need to incorporate a sea level rise if they're going to make a case for needing that.
Thank you. I'm just going to go through. This is a document that is, a version of it is in your packet that goes through and identifies the changes made during each subsequent draft. And so we had added in the Planning Commission recommendation. So this is the one I was talking about, treated wood.
Mr.
Adding,
Young?
sorry.
Mr. Walters.
When it says modify, what does that mean? Modified to, is that highlighted in their recorded motion?
Sorry, I lost where I was. I don't believe they provided any specific language on that. At the last meeting, Mr. Capron went over that particular item.
Yes, and so that relates to the existing regulation, which outright it says it needs to be minimized in all possible scenarios. And so by eliminating that language, here, I think I have up the table too.
Thank you.
So this is, this is public comment too.
While you're bringing that up, Ms. Grage, the attachments on the website include the Planning Commission recommendation. But the Planning Commission recommendation makes reference to an attachment A, which actually identifies the changes.
Yes.
Where do we find attachment A?
That is supposed to be the planning commission, or excuse me, the responses to the public comments, the second draft.
And I have it up, Libby, I can.
Oh, yeah, thank you. I'm trying to
Yeah.
hurriedly find it. Thank you.
All right. So can folks see my screen here?
So these are the comment responses that were prepared for the second draft. And within this document is where it discusses the changes.
Okay, all right, I see that document. It was not clear to me that that was supposed to be incorporated into the recorded motion from the Planning Commission, though.
Okay.
Okay, so then I haven't reviewed that document in that context, and I guess I would like to.
Okay. And so the regulatory change is related to development regulation 9.5.5 regarding the use of treated wood. And so the language proposed to be struck is this last sentence there.
Okay. Anything else, Ms. Grange?
I don't have anything else. If the council would like some additional time to review this document and before we put out the third draft, we could do that if you would like to come back.
Mr. Young?
Mr. Walters?
I would like to throw out a suggestion, and that would be that the department generate the third draft based on what we're talking about here, and then let us review that, so that we only have one more comment period on this, but so that the draft that goes out for public review is one that we think we want.
That's doable from a staff perspective.
Because in the alternative, if you generate a draft and send it out for public comment, and then that's really our first chance to really get our hands on it and get dirty with it, then we might have to go out for another comment period.
I'm noticing considerable head nodding, so if that's doable, Mr. Measer, Ms. Grange, let us know.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and Mr. Walters. Yeah, we can generate that third draft. I think perhaps the public and the council could review at the same time. We could come back with that third draft as soon as we've got, finished, getting that ready, and kind of review it simultaneously with the public. Does that make sense?
Well, that is not what I was suggesting. I was suggesting that we make a decision on a draft to put out for public comment before we put it out for public comment.
Okay.
Because if there are substantial changes that we want to make after public comment and they're not within the scope of what we'd put out for comment, we might have to put it out for comment again, which is not the end of the world, but it might not be the most efficient.
Sure. If the council agrees, we can go ahead and develop that third drafting and get that back before council for review.
And then will the third draft include the development regulations numbered with code numbering scheme or with the DR numbering scheme?
It'll be code numbering scheme.
Perfect.
Sure. We'll have it ready.
Okay.
All right.
So Mr. Mayor
No,
Pro
go
Tem.
ahead, Ms. Grange.
I was just going to say that will change up the schedule that I presented, obviously. So we'll develop a new schedule so that the public knows when opportunities for comment will be coming up.
Excellent. All right.
Mayor Pro Tem? Mr. Young?
Yes. Ms. Moulton, please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Grange. So just for like a quick review, so as a member of the public or as a member of the city council, what we should do now is read the second draft, or are we waiting for, we're waiting for the third draft and we're going to review that and those changes as council and then put that out for public comment after we comment on it?
Ms. Moulton, yes, that was the feeling that I'm getting. Yes, that staff will present a third draft incorporating the changes that Planning Commission made and identifying those in the document, and the other feedback that we've received already. And then council can go through that, give your blessing, and then we would put that out for additional comment.
Okay, great. Thank you for clarifying that for me.
All right. Unless there are any other questions for Ms. Grange, we're going to move forward. Are there any other questions from council? All right. Thank you very much, Ms. Grange.
Thank you.
Thank you. For those of you that waited very patiently, we only have 2 more items. I would assume that you're here for the contract award. Okay. We do have one comment from Mr. Wetcher's got his hand up. That Mr. Wetcher, please come forward, and then we have Tim come up. Thank you. Press the button, Mr. Wetcher. Thank you. Yes. Excuse me, Mr. Welch. Make sure that the blue light is on. Is it on?
The green light is on.
Okay,
There we
green
go.
light is on. Okay, we got blue up here, but yes. Okay, great.
I see a green
Thank
light.
you. All right.
Okay. I just wanted to ask about the language. I share some of the misgivings about transferring language that has not yet been created from one document into the other. Will the third draft the most recent document or the most recently approved critical areas ordinance language, or the language that you hope to approve in the future? I'm not sure what was, I'm not sure how you can do that, but I look at the possibility of having the shoreline master plan assigned to an earlier document, critical ordinance.
Is it
Critical
going off?
areas ordinance that you no longer approve. So,
Are you having trouble, Mr. Welcher, with the hair trigger on that finger of yours, or?
oh, there we go.
Okay,
Thank
there
you.
it is.
Anyway, I would just like to ask if we're going to have the most recent language, and if we have this SMP document assigned to an earlier set of critical areas ordinance, cannot projects be vested under that earlier critical areas ordinance before we change the language to the eventual perfect language that we will be incorporating into the shoreline master plan? I have one other question, and it relates to the stormwater management plan as it intersects with our shoreline master plan. And this is just a little bit of a question out there. We have a lot of shoreline within our urban streams. They're the most impacted by stormwater because we also use them for stormwater disposal. And they're the most urban impacted at the same time. We have, most of our urban streams have housing all around them. How will we be managing that shoreline within the shoreline management plan in the way that we want to manage all of our other shorelines? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Welcher. I'm sure that was a big question for you, Mr. Miesmer, and Libby. I'm not sure if we can answer that tonight, or is that at a point, at some other later point, as we bring forward the documents that Mr. Wetcher's point can be further addressed. Would you speak to that, Mr. Meismer?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. First of all, Mr. Wetcher understands and realizes that we are working on some amendments to our currently adopted critical areas ordinance. Those amendments will be done prior to August 18th. And so we don't have that language today, but we hope to have that language very soon. So as we continue on with the discussions, research, and understanding of our Shorelines Master Program, the two are going to come together concurrently for final adoption as we come to City Council.
Mr. Young?
Thank you, Mr. Meismer. Mr. Walters?
Well, and maybe in that next draft, we could introduce a note that just says that, that this is not what the language is today, but here it's going to come forward in August so that people are very clearly on the same page.
We will clarify that in this third draft.
Thank you, Mr. Meismer, Mr. Walters, and thank you, Mr. Welcher, for bringing that forward, that question. Tim, would you come forward at this point and give the audience what they've been waiting for? Tim, just to make sure I'm clear, you're going to do both items 7E and F. Will you do them at the same time?
That's correct. I can do them both at the same time if you'd like.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Perfect. No problem. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Young, members of the council, members of the audience, and members of the public at home. Thank you for letting me present tonight. My name's Tim Holman. I'm the Engineering Services Manager with the Public Works Department, and I'm here to present to you Item 7E and 7F, the first one being resolution number 3089, declaring an emergency and waiving state bidding requirements for the relocation of sanitary sewer pump station number 8 and U Avenue bank stabilization. And the second one, item 7F, will be a contract award for that work. So I have a map up here for you of the vicinity of pump station number 8, which is located at the end of U Avenue, which if you turn the wrong way, headed up to the top of Capsani, you're going to end up at the end of U Avenue, which is a great little street end if you want to look at the ships out at the port. Some of you may know that there's an intention to build an outfall here. This project is not related to the outfall. It's related to a pump station directly adjacent to it.
Could you speak just to,
closer
okay,
to the
gotcha.
mic. Sorry.
No, just, I'm hearing you, but I wanted to make sure everybody else could too as well.
I'll lean in. So in early January 2022, we had a high tide mixed with some winter storm event. The high tide, I'm not sure what it was here in Anacortes, but in other parts of Puget Sound, the high tide was 2 feet higher than forecast. So that high tide was significantly higher than forecast, significantly higher than standard bank armoring in many locations around town, and particularly at this location. Right here on the edge of the bank is located pump station number 8. Pump station number 8 is a pump station that serves approximately 7 to 10 residences in this neighborhood. It pumps about 1,000 gallons of sewage to our sewer treatment plant every day. When that high tide event combined with some wind, it began to destabilize the bank, and we saw bank sloughing here at the end of U Avenue. The immediate concern in January was that right here on the north side of the pump station is where the control panel for that pump station was. So we immediately mobilized to move those controls to the south side of the pump station where the wet well is, and hoped that was going to be enough. Well, we've monitored the situation over the last 4 months, and that bank is continuing to stabilize. So obviously the armoring along that bank has been breached, and it continues to move, and so much so that that pump station is now beginning to be undermined, and there's a threat that that pump station will slide with the bank and end up in the bay or in Guaymas Channel. That's not what we want to have happen. So we're still under that high tide event, as well as some storms during that time period, qualifies for a FEMA disaster reimbursement. And so we are still within the emergency provisions of that FEMA disaster. That extends for 6 months. That allows us to streamline some of the permitting, as well as have emergency work be reimbursable from FEMA. And so we're looking to move that pump station, because we're still seeing that bank sloughing, to approximately 100 feet south to this location that you see on the map in front of you. And so we hope to, or we want to slide that pump station. It'll be away from the bank, it'll be safe and stabilized, and it'll also be eligible for reimbursement by FEMA, as well as some permitting assistance. So the resolution is to allow for that work, and then that will allow us to have an emergency contract, and then item 7F will be that emergency contract in the amount of $350,000 with Welch Brothers Construction of Anacortes. They're contractors that have done similar work for the city. We know they're qualified, we know they're able, and most importantly, they're available. They hope to start mobilizing probably tomorrow, if we can get this contract approved tonight.
Thank you, Tim. At this point, I'm not sure if it's proper, but I'm going to defer to Mr. Hoagland and the team, Ms. Swetnam, is that we take these one at a time, or can we take them together? It's for Resolution 3089, declaring an emergency and waiving state bidding requirements for the relocation of sanitary sewer pump station 8 and U Avenue bank stabilization.
Mayor Pro Tem, I recommend that council vote on each item separately, with the emergency resolution coming first.
Got it. Thank you very much, Ms. Swetnam. All right, it's before council now. What say you?
Yeah.
Mr. Walters?
I move approval of Resolution 3089.
Second.
There's been a motion by Mr. Walters and a faint second, I do believe, by Ms. Moulton. All right, so all in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say no. The ayes have it. Thank you very much. And we're going to move on now to 7A, which is Mr. Tim. It's the pump station emergency relocation number 22-154-ENG-001. This is an action item.
Mr. Young?
Mr. Walters?
I move that we authorize the mayor or Mayor Pro Tem to sign the contract as presented.
There's a motion by Mr. Walters, a second by Ms. Cleland McGrath. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, say no. The ayes have it. We move forward. Thank you very much, Mr. Holman. Excellent presentation.
Thank you very much.
All right. Now that you're still here, we're going to move forward to our last item on the agenda. A little tongue-in-cheek. I hope you won't mind. It is the Resolution 3088 declaring Pride Month, June 2022. This is a discussion and possible action item.
Mr. Young?
Mr. Walters?
Are you looking for an introduction to this item?
I did,
Okay.
and then I'll read the resolution if it's okay, and then we'll end it.
The City of Anacortes has received a number of requests for a proclamation declaring LGBTQ plus Pride Month as June. The resolution as presented here specifically calls out our commitment that we announced through Resolution 2060 2 years ago to maintaining Anacortes as a welcoming, safe, and just community for everyone. It recognizes, like other communities have, Pride Month, June as Pride Month, in commemoration of the Stonewall Uprising in 1969. We've drafted this resolution and put it on the agenda because a proclamation was not forthcoming, so that we have a vehicle to take action to recognize June as Pride Month like so many other communities have.
Thank you, Mr. Walters, for that introduction. And at this point, I'm going to read the resolution, and then we'll open it up to council. At this point, it is resolution number 3088, a resolution recognizing the month of June is LGBTQ plus Pride Month in the city of Anacortes. Whereas the city of Anacortes recognizes that one of our greatest strengths is the diversity of our community, and whereas members of the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer community plus community reside throughout our city, are employed by our city, are public servants that represent our city on committees and on city council, and are our neighbors, teachers, first responders, business owners, youth, and beloved friends and family. And whereas members of the LGBTQ plus community contribute to our city's success in any number of immeasurable ways. And whereas all members of our community deserve to live without fear of discrimination, prejudice, or violence that members of the LGBTQ plus community disproportionately suffer from. And whereas the City of Anacortes community recognizes and celebrates our obligation to uphold the dignity of all people and to protect the most vulnerable among us. And whereas the City Council has recognized through Resolution 2060 our commitment to maintaining Anacortes as a welcoming, safe, and just community for everyone, not just in word, but in deed. And whereas the month of June is celebrated throughout our nation in commemoration of the Stonewall Uprising of June 28, 1969, that marked the beginning of the LGBTQ plus rights movement. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the City Council and the City of Anacortes that the month of June is hereby recognized as LGBTQ plus Pride Month in the City of Anacortes, and all residents of Anacortes are encouraged to join in celebrating the diversity of our whole community. Introduced, passed, and approved by the City Council of the City of Anacortes this June 23rd day of May 2022. At this point, I would first call for a vote and then comment. Okay, how about we'll do a comment at this point. I would really look forward to that. First, the comment will be Mr. McDougall.
Oh, I was actually suggesting we open it to
Okay,
the
public
community.
comment?
Yeah.
All right, we're going to open it up to public comment at this point. Please come forward if you have a public comment, and would the team sort of take a peek and see if there's anyone online that, yeah. Okay, there's no one online with their hand up, and at this point, I will recognize you, sir. Please give your name.
Michael Bastrom. Thank you, Council. Regarding this resolution, I don't really have strong feelings about this proposed resolution. Nothing will change. Everyone will go about their lives tomorrow. I see it for what it is, virtue signaling. Do LGBTQ citizens really need the government to tell them they are valuable members of our community? Of course they are. But what is disturbing is the inference that if you don't pass this resolution, it means Anacortes hates LGBTQ citizens. We have LGBTQ members of city government, a gay school superintendent, hired a gay high school principal. For a small town like Anacortes, I'd say we have an overrepresentation of LGBTQ in our community. Anacortes is a pretty welcoming city, and I think that's a good thing. Of course, all of us together make Anacortes one of the best cities in America. I'm trying to remember, did the council during the Gear era pass an anti-hate resolution or a proclamation? Okay, so that's on record. My concern is that corporations and government are being held hostage to individual grievance groups, and they act not in the interest of the general community. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone that would like to come up and have a comment at this point? Okay, there's one in the back there. Please come forward. Please state your name.
Annette Pankey. I've been a resident of Anacortes for 11 years. And as you see, I'm a person of color. Would you say that Anacortes has an overrepresentation of people of color? I also would like to say that I'm a productive member of this community. I pay my taxes. I patronize the local stores and businesses. And I am a marginalized person. And I do need special attention at times. So I hope that the council will pass this resolution so that I feel that I am a part of this community, I'm a welcome part of this community, and I'm recognized for what I bring to this community.
Thank you. Any others from the audience? All right, we got a young person. Please come up and state your name.
Okay, I'm going to lower this. Hi, I'm Ava Conti. I'm an 8th grader at Anacortes Middle School, and I'm part of my school's GSA and my...
Would you pull the mic just a little closer to your lips so we can hear you?
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm Ava Conti. I'm an 8th grader at Anacortes Middle School, and I'm part of my school's GSA and the GSA leadership team. I'm a proud member of the LGBTQ community. In my entire life, I've had people tell me who don't even personally know me that what I am is wrong, and I'm unnatural and just confused. Throughout my last few years at middle school, I've been bullied and harassed all because I'm gay. I've been mocked and shoved and called disgusting names just because I don't fit the societal norm. I want to live in a town where my identity is supported and welcomed. I want to live in a town where I'm respected no matter how I identify. I want to be part of this community, a community that takes care of its citizens and shows that we all belong here. So today I stand up here, terrified, and ask you, the city of Anacortes, will you show your full support to our community, or will you turn a blind eye and play into the erasure of LGBTQ citizens? Because I can tell you now that acknowledging June as Pride Month will open up a gate for LGBTQ youth and even adults that they never knew was possible. You will show them that who they are should not be ridiculed and hidden. You will show them that their town has their back, even if their family or friends or other people don't. Acknowledging Pride can be life-changing for so many people, and I really hope you consider this and make the right decision. Thank you.
Thank you for coming forward. Bravo. All right, we do have someone online. I want to recognize her name is Tammy Guffey. And so if you would, I guess, be...
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay. Hi, my name is Tammy Guffey. I am a born heterosexual woman in a Christian family. I now live in the city. I lived here about 2.5 years. I have 3 daughters who have recently come out. And I've been learning more about this community and what it means. And whoever wrote the resolution, can I just say that was beautiful. And this is not divisive. This is people coming together to stand up for something they believe in, which is treating people with respect and love, regardless of what we believe. And we're not asking you to believe, to change your beliefs. We're asking you to treat people with love and respect and make this world, this community safe to be human. So thank you for the City Council for taking this stand.
Thank you. We have another young person that would like to come forward. Please come and state your name. Thank you. I will say that traditionally in council, we don't allow clapping, but I guess this is a special occasion that we will look the other way for the moment. Mr. Thurber, you've had your turn at the mic. As soon as this young person gets through, you may have another moment, but no, we're not changing the rules, Mr. Thurber. What we're doing is we're allowing people to have their voice heard. We heard you early on, and we appreciated that difference. And so what we are allowing right now is for her to move forward. Now, if clapping does make you uncomfortable, you're welcome not to clap. Yeah, I know. You're welcome not to, Miss. We recognize you. Please go forward, young lady.
My name is Olivia McLeod. I'm a 6th grader at AMS. And I would just like to say that this is a wonderful thing to be happening because me as a bisexual woman, I know throughout my life, I have been very open about my sexuality. I've always known very young. And I have had people at school, outside of school, tell me that, again, it's not okay, it's unnatural, and I'm just confused. My father, Christopher McLeod, is a gay male, and he has faced a lot of homophobia in this town, and I have faced a lot of backlash because I'm his daughter. And this proclamation, I don't really know, I'm sorry, I'm really nervous. I just think that this will be a great thing, again, for our community, our adults, our kids, everyone's children, everyone's family. I just think that this will be a really, amazing thing. And yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. I just want to say thank you for all sentiments that are brought here today, and particularly for the young people willing and the people willing to come forward despite the nerves, despite the trepidations, to be willing to come forward and speak your truth, whatever that is. At this point, any other people from the audience that have not spoken? At this point, I'm going to turn it over to City Council.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Ms. Moulton.
Thank you. I really wish I could be there in person tonight, but I do have COVID, so I'm at home, but I can see that there are a lot of people there tonight, and that excites me. I'm very proud to be part of this moment at City Council and in our community because, as Andrea Dahl said last week at public comment, this is about human rights. We as a council and as a community are championing human rights and equality for all of us. It's not about whatever percentage of people are LGBTQ plus. It's about all of us. It's about recognizing and honoring all the members of our society and the contributions that they bring. They prop us up. They're part of everything we do. So to try to say that there aren't gay people in the armed forces or the police force is just really unfortunate, that anyone could think that there's any place in society that is not influenced and touched and benefited by those members of our community. And I am just really glad to be a part of this going forward in this resolution. I stand behind it 100%, and I wish I could, again, be there in person. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Moulton. Anyone else on the council? Ms. Hubert.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you to the young people that have spoken up. Your bravery and your strength today is heartwarming and powerful. And I still get nerves too. I'm twice your age, and it's always hard to speak up. And please know that you are seen and you are heard, and this is for you, because not everyone in this audience is out tonight. This isn't what it's like. Nobody gives you a pamphlet. It's not like when you get your first period and you open up the Tampax box and it's like, oh, here's how you do it. Not everybody comes out. People come out on their own timelines. It's difficult, and I think that this resolution is the start of a conversation that we'll be having for a very, very long time. And it's a conversation about acceptance and love and not feeling bullied for wanting to express who you are. So I want to thank everyone here today who's spoken up. I want to thank Mr. Walters for putting this together, and I want to just thank the community for coming out and showing up. You're seen, you're heard, you're loved. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hubick. Anyone else on the council? Ms. Cleland McGrath.
Yeah, I just want to echo that and say thank you all for coming. Thank you for speaking your thoughts and sharing your experiences. I was pleased to work on this resolution. I think that, as you've said, there's people in different stages of their process of coming out, and we also need to encourage the folks that are not there yet, and our children and our community. So I was pleased with this, and I would like to put forward resolution number 3088 for the month of June to be LGBTQ plus Pride Month for the city of Anacortes.
We have a motion.
Second.
We have a second by Mr. McDougall. Any further discussion? At this point, Mr. Hoagland, I'd like to do a voice vote if it's okay. Would
Mr.
you call
Young,
the roll?
I think we might have a few more statements
A
left.
few more statements. Hang on just 1 second. Next for the statement, Mr. Walters.
All right, me. Thank you all for speaking both for and against this resolution. I'm glad to hear anybody's points of view. I do want to say, if I wish you a happy birthday, it's not because I don't care about other people's birthdays. It's just some people get a birthday once per year. Treating people with respect, recognizing their individual human rights to be whoever they are, I think is important. And there was a shooting in Buffalo a couple of weeks ago. Maybe you saw this on the news. It was targeted at black people. It was perpetrated by a man who had fallen victim to a poisonous racist ideology, the Great Replacement Theory. You might have heard about it on the news as well. It's an extreme example, but it's illustrative, I think, of why it's critically important that we recognize diversity, that we celebrate the human rights of those that are different from us. Because I really believe you can only fall victim to one of those poisonous, pathogenic theories if you fail to recognize that all of us are different from others in some way. People that are different from us are not scary, they're just different. It's vitally important that we do that. We need to reach into the community and support others that are different from us. Are they worthy of additional support? Yes. So it's really important that we do this today, and I'd urge you all to read the resolution, read exactly what it is that it says, because we wrote these words with intention. We are recognizing Pride Month, as many other jurisdictions do, and we are encouraging Anacortes to celebrate the diversity of our community. That is very specifically and very intentionally what we're doing here in this resolution, and I support the motion.
Thank you. Any others? Mr. McDougall.
Mayor Pro Tem. Yeah, I just wanted to also essentially reiterate what everyone has said up here, and thank you all very much for coming out, and for the speakers, especially the kids here. I mean, that was amazing. It was great to hear from you. And thank you, authors of the resolution. I'm very proud to get to vote yes for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McDougall. Mr. Carter.
For those that come to the meetings regularly, no, I don't normally speak. But I do want to thank everyone that's come out today. Several of you know that several of us have been meeting with you, discussing about bringing something like this forward. I do want to thank the young people for getting up and speaking, because we don't normally have that here. But just to echo what everyone else has been saying, I want to thank you out for coming out.
Thank you, Mr. Carter. Lastly, I will say my piece and then we'll call for the vote. Today, I and we walk on the great shoulders of many that have gone before us, many that have been bold enough in our country to help stand forward on sometimes issues that may seem difficult for some. But it's those many things that have allowed us to go forward as a great nation that's inclusive of all of us. Our country has been built, grown, fought for, and bloodshed by many of diverse hues, many of diverse sexualities, and many of diverse thoughts. When I think of this moment, I also think of one of my childhood mentors that I read about. His name was Bayard Ruskin. Bayard Ruskin organized the March on Washington. Bayard Ruskin organized much of the civil rights struggle. Bayard Ruskin did much of the pre-work to recruit Dr. King, to meet with Lyndon Johnson, to organize those meetings, but yet, being gay, he couldn't stand on the stage. But yet, without his brilliance and the brilliance of so many others, Eleanor Roosevelt and her friendship with Mary McLeod Bethune, you know, when we think about it, we have people in the military that have been here since World War I. People in the early days of our societies in Rome, in Greece, all of them, military, scientists, laborers, you know, even the faithful. Those of us that believe that there is someone greater than all of us, those of us that believe that through those divine movements forward, we are all championed. And so I want to thank all of them for having brought us forward and brought forward all of us of diverse views, thoughts, even those that may not understand why this is so important, why it's important to be recognized as a society. I thank you, all of council, for having your voice heard. Thank you, all of you who organized in the vineyard to make sure life moves forward for all of us, whether you're gay, straight, somewhere in between, but just a caring soul that loves our city and who we are. So at this point, I will call for the vote. Mr. Hoagland.
Mr. Walters?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Ms. Cleveland McGrath?
Yes.
Ms. Moulton?
Yes.
Mr. McDougall?
Yes.
Ms. Ubik?
Yes.
Mr. Carter?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. And with this pen, I will sign the resolution in order. Done. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Unless there's anything else, we will call this meeting of May 23rd, 2022 to a close. Thank you very much. Thank you.